Mr. President, thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It's wonderful to be with you. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to your audience through you.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, you've met with the Saudi King Salman, and you've also met with some ministers. What were the major issues that you focused on with the Saudi leadership today in particular?
Well, first of all, I congratulated the custodian of the Holy Shrines on yet another Hajj. This is the largest, most complex logistical operation in the world. Mecca and Medina have a very special place in the hearts of every Muslim, but particularly for every Afghan. And we've had an enduring relationship since the founding of Saudi Arabia and long before that. So our bilateral relationship is on a very solid foundation. In that context, our discussions focus both on opportunities and on threats. Opportunities are how to work together to enhance the momentum in Afghanistan towards self-reliance, towards regional connectivity, and towards the utilization of the immense resources of Afghanistan. Afghanistan, fortunately, is one of the richest countries in terms of water, mineral resources, location, and human capital. And in this regard, the custodian of the Holy Shrines give instructions. And I'm delighted that I'd be working with Dr. Majid, the Minister of Industry and Investment. And I'm looking forward to a delegation that would be coming to work with us. Equally, we've worked with the Islamic Bank, the Saudi Development Fund, and the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Countries. So a stable Afghanistan is not only the front line against this threat, it is also the front line for defense of the kingdom, the world at large, Europe and the United States. Our security coordination will be enhanced in this regard. The third is an opportunity for peace, where a condition-based approach to peace. Our offer to Taliban was unconditional, but peace itself must be conditional to enable us to preserve the gains of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan and to make sure that the Taliban separate themselves from terrorist organizations and narcotics, which are both strong threats. And here, the kingdom's foreign policy, Minister Jabr and others will work together with us to move forward in a coordinated approach that a sustainable peace, that is the goal of every Afghan and the goal of the region, is realized. And in terms of that coordination, both with the United States and Europeans and with Pakistan, that has a special role in this, will be enhanced.
You've talked about great opportunities and a very optimistic way of the negotiations and the talks with the Saudi leadership. But what does Kabul really expect and or hope from Riyadh, having said all what you have just said about the opportunities that you're looking forward to?
Well, what we are hoping for are movement fairly rapidly on some questions like labor and opening up of the Saudi market towards Afghanistan. Afghanistan is moving to really become an export-oriented country. And in this regard, there are quick wins, and we are working on that. There are other parts where coordination is important, and the voice of Saudi Arabia in the world community and in the region is important. We will be coordinating on this. And then there's a longer horizon that after the election of the presidential election of 28 September, the new leadership of Afghanistan, whether it's us or other people, will be working, because relations between Afghanistan and Saudi are not dependent on a person. This is a relationship between two countries that are foundational in nature and will endure.
Moving on to another issue, the U.S. envoy to Afghanistan, Mr. Khalil Zad, has taken a tour and visited, also ended his tour in Afghanistan. How effective do you think that tour will be?
We, the government of Afghanistan, I particularly, created the conditions for peace. It's I who asked for unconditional discussions with Taliban, leading to, of course, to condition-based peace. We created the conditions for a ceasefire for the first time in 40 years. USF, and we persuaded President Trump and the United States to support peace. Before of this, my predecessor said 13 conditions on beginning of talks, and the United States had many conditions. This is because the overwhelming majority of the Afghan people want peace. But peace has to be sustainable. The discussions on the first round between Ambassador Khalilzad and Taliban are to persuade them to discuss the issues that pertain to the United States priorities. The second round of discussions will be between Taliban and the government of Afghanistan. And there we will be talking in earnest about how to both integrate the Taliban, but also to understand that they are a minority, and the government and the people of Afghanistan constitute the majority. It's a discussion that is it's still at the mid-stage, and to take stock of a mid-stage, we need to be both optimistic, but also careful to make sure that the outcome that we are seeking is achieved.
Mr. President, why do I get a feeling, maybe I'm wrong, that you as the Afghani government fear of neglection, to be neglected if there is talks between the Americans and the Taliban?
No, we're not. On the contrary, peace cannot come without the government of Afghanistan speaking directly to the Taliban, or Taliban talking directly to us. Do you think a single one of their prisoners can be released without my signature? Do you think they can come to Kabul without us welcoming them?
Don't you think it will turn to be a American-Taliban full talks?
No, it's impossible. Look, we're the legitimate government of Afghanistan. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. And we are not fearful. Do you see me shaking?
Of course not.
No, because why am I not shaking? Because our security forces are performing brilliantly in the field. We are not a defeated army. We are not a defeated police or defeated intelligence. In the battlefield, we have not lost. So we are not suing for peace. We are seeking peace out of conviction, not out of defeat. And the request for reduction of numbers of American troops came from me in January in a letter to President Trump. We agree with President Trump that the expenses of the American presence in Afghanistan should be reduced. And this can now be reduced because we have significantly reformed our security forces, and they're able to, in terms of enablers and support. That relationship is based on mutual interest. Afghanistan, the presence of the international community in Afghanistan has been welcome, it's been essential, but it's not a free gift. We sacrifice more than anybody else, both for our freedom, but also for global security.
Now, going back to the talks between the Afghan government and Taliban, the Americans and Taliban, how far do you think Taliban will be committed really to any agreement that comes out of the talks between, whether it's the Afghani government, official government, or the American talks with the Taliban? How far do you think they'll be committed?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? It's not who is committed and who's not. It's how talks are conditioned. Trust and verify. We need to take a jump of faith because our people demand peace. The Taliban are not a positive power. They're a negative power. They derive their power from killing civilians, from attacking hospitals, schools, universities. But this price is too high. the blood as the president of Afghanistan. I'm president of all of Afghanistan. I don't differentiate between a child or a woman or non-combatant civilian as to whether it's Talib or otherwise. The society wants an end to this. We've seen 40 years of conflict. So as a result of this, we held our Lower Jirga, our Grand Assembly, 3,200 men and women, and more than 30% of them women for the first time, from all walks. And they instructed me to go solve the problem. Talks are essential in order to put an end to conflict. But how do we trust it be specific conditions that need to be put? Because the society is making a huge step to reintegrate the Taliban, and it's fault. Taliban are different from internationally transnational terrorist organizations because they're Afghans in essence. But the choice is going to come, each Talib must choose. Will they prefer their homeland over these international ties? These are difficult decisions for them. Time will tell if they move forward with conviction and with courage, the way we are doing, then there can be the right outcome. If they don't, then unfortunately, there will be loss of trust and the consequent loss of opportunity that we'll have to cope with.
Now, Mr. President, interesting you said that you are the president of all Afghanistan. Now, how do you challenge the acquisition that says that the president or the Afghani government only rules Kabul and has no actually power on the rest of Afghanistan? So the president is only in Kabul.
No, well, it's a fantastic question. That they used to tell of my predecessor that he was mayor of Kabul because he didn't travel. You know, I've just completed my 74th trip to the provinces of Afghanistan. Is there a single province of Afghanistan that is run by Taliban? That's my answer. I've been 74 times in the last 5 years to the provinces. The Afghan army. Is there a single province of Afghanistan that the Afghan army is not present? That the Afghan administration, a governor is not present? Judges are not present? Services are not delivered? This is a methodology that was applied when we had over 130,000 international troops in the country. When I became president, the combat role of the international troops ended. Over 100,000 troops were withdrawn. Everybody was then saying, well, of course they will collapse.
100,000 troops from Taliban? Or
No, from the international community. Over 100,000 Americans and other particular Americans were fighting in my country. During my predecessor's time, President Karzai's time, I took the responsibility for planning, designing the process where all these troops left by January 2015. And I became president. We have been able, who's doing the fighting? The Afghan security forces. Who's doing the dying? This is a methodology where, of course, you're dealing with a network. Taliban are not a government. They're a network and who are targeting civilians. They are in the spaces between people. So yes, they have a presence. They have a violent presence, but that presence does not mean that we are Kabul-bound. If we were Kabul-bound, I would not be able to have this intensive and extensive relationship with the provinces of the country.
it's just interesting, Mr. President. You're saying that Taliban are not a government and they are aggressive, as you're saying, or harsh, as you're saying. Now, if the talks between Taliban and Americans, again, I'm sorry to actually come back to that issue again, but if the talks actually succeed and the Americans withdraw 5,000 troops, the Taliban will abandon Al-Qaeda, aren't you afraid that that will lead Taliban to power actually officially, being as the government of Afghanistan?
No, because the system is a democracy. Will Taliban win an election? I'll challenge them today to come and join the election. If the people of Afghanistan vote for them, would be delighted to turn power to them. But I'm convinced that the people of Afghanistan will not vote for them. They are convinced that the people of Afghanistan will not vote for them. Why are they not accepting election? Look, every single armed movement, the absolute majority of them all, if not every single, in 1990s to now, has been seeking an election as a way, because they're confident that they have roots in acceptance. Is there a single survey, credible survey, that shows more than 5% support for the Taliban? Afghanistan of today is different. The Taliban, in the presidential palace, there was a half-complete mosque. They couldn't even complete a mosque in their 5 years in Kabul. I completed it. What did the Taliban build? Nothing. They need to demonstrate to the people of Afghanistan that they're capable of being productive, of being able to become an instrument of transforming the country. Their affiliations are with the most destructive people. Does Al-Qaeda care about Afghanistan? Does it care one bit as to how many thousands of Afghans are killed? Did Osama bin Laden care in 2001 to leave our country and thereby avoid the war? No. He insisted on staying. So the challenge is to them. They need to move. 5,000 troops withdrawal will make no difference to us, because the support structure is there, and we need to make sure. The key is all Afghans, throughout our history, we've not had international prisons. These 18 years are an exception in our history. We need to arrive at a time-bound arrangement where we can secure. And the main reason the international troops are there is because the Taliban are perpetuating violence. So if we agreed, the reason for the major presence will come down, and then we can focus on the threat of terrorism. And if they join us in containing that threat, the sooner the need for international presence will disappear.
Mr. President, in the last incidents of the wedding bombing that happened in Afghanistan, the government accused Taliban. Taliban denied any relations to the bombing, and ISIS actually admitted to be responsible of the bombing. Aren't you afraid that Afghanistan will be the next state for ISIS?
There are threats, but the first thing, Taliban denial is not acceptable. They declared war on the election. They've declared war on the civilians. Without them helping ISIS at the beginning, there would be no ISIS in Afghanistan. Now they've fallen apart. Second, we need to look. Anybody can take responsibility. Does ISIS really have the capability of carrying these operations, or are there sections and elements within the larger Taliban coalition that are supporting ISIS? And the main question would be, what percentage of the Taliban are actually moving back and forth between ISIS and Taliban? These are questions that during negotiations, and particularly during verification of a peace agreement that we are determined to arrive, will need to be answered.
Coming to the last question, Mr. President, now with all these negotiations and all these talks, the United States, the Afghani government, Saudi Arabia, and this tour that you're taking along, how do you like to see the roles of these mentioned governments and these countries in the future of Afghanistan, and what roles would you like them to play actually?
We like to see them play two roles. One is to facilitate, create the conditions for direct talks between the legitimate government of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan and the Taliban. And two, help in the verification of the agreements. And three, come together for a coalition, build a coalition for peace that can ensure that Afghanistan will be able to absorb this tremendous both opportunity but also challenge. We'll need if we want to finish the war, we'll need to absorb the refugee population of Afghanistan, both in Pakistan and in Iran. Both countries are having major economic difficulties. Life is becoming hard. Tens of thousands of people have fought on the side of the Taliban. They need to be absorbed. We need to end still. A significant number of Afghans suffer from poverty, illiteracy, bad health. And the most important, Afghanistan does have the resources to stand on its feet. We need partners for a limited period of time. And then the most significant thing would be to change from an aid-based society to an investment-based society. Regional connectivity, development of the energy resources of the country, the mineral resources of the country, the connectivity advantages that come from that. So we have a very positive agenda where our partners can come. And also, we are a 99.9% Muslim country who've contributed from the dawn of Islam to a great civilization, rediscovery of that civilization, consolidation of that. And the remaining threat, which is that of transnational terrorism and transnational drug cartels, would need to be faced jointly with us, and we are confident that we can face them jointly together.
Mr. President, again, thank you very much for this interview.
It's a pleasure.
And giving Al-Arabiya this great opportunity.
Thanks to Arabiya for giving me this opportunity.